Chapter 8 from It's a Thought That Counts by Dr. David Hamilton. This is Experiments in Connectedness. Since everything is connected and everything is condensed out of consciousness, it follows that your thoughts can affect anything, not just your biology. Each thought, as we know, sends vibrations throughout the whole web, and so events in your life and in the world, which are merely a product of the interaction of things, are also affected. Most thoughts produce minor vibrations on the web, and these result in minor changes in the individual circumstances and in the world. Some scientists have studied this using random event generators, REGs, such as computers that constantly print out random numbers. The idea is that such numbers should always be random. That's their nature. If you were to show the randomness on a computer screen, you would see a straight line that never changes. However, under certain conditions, it does change. In the 2005 report in the Journal of Cellular and Molecular Biology, summarized several years of research conducted by the Princetown Engineering Anomalies Research Peer Group at Princeton University. That's PEAR group. A typical experiment would see a person try to make one number appear more often than any other, and it was possible to do so. An average person, for instance, could make, say, an 8 appear more often than any other number. In 2007, peer scientists even showed how intention could make a robot move in a particular direction. Publishing in the Journal of Scientific Exploration, they described how they had converted random events into random directions that a small robot could move in. And they showed that by willing the robot to move in particular directions, people could gradually make the robot move in those directions. Such studies suggest that we interact with reality every moment, although the effects of our thoughts are seldom noticeable unless we are consciously aware of our role in creating our own personal reality. Usually it takes lots of the same kind of thought to have any kind of noticeable effect. Indeed, when a large number of people are focusing upon the same thing at the same time, the changes are more noticeable. However, smaller changes are often observed with just one person, and I have confirmed this in my own experiments, recording that my intentions frequently give rise to changes around me. Each thought sends ripples, waves, vibrations through the universe, just as dropping a pebble in a pond sends ripple outwards. A single thought produces a small vibration that is hardly noticeable in the world, but millions of the same thoughts cause a big vibration, like the effects of dropping a huge boulder in a pond. Furthermore, each identical wave adds to another, resonating with it and causing a multiplication of its intensity. Say 10 million people heard something on the TV news at the same time, and all of them thought, whoa, that would be 10 million people whose minds stopped processing 100 other things, and just for that instant were focused on the same thing. You would expect this to produce a big vibration. Indeed, numerous experiments have shown that when this type of focusing takes place, a blip appears on the line of the random event generator, and such is the force of the focusing of millions of thoughts at the same time that the entire web is affected. Imagine if hundreds or even thousands of people focused on peace at the same time. The thoughts would ripple outwards and the effects would be huge. Experiments have actually shown this. A paper published in the Journal of Crime and Justice in 1981 describes the results of some of these experiments. In a typical experiment, several hundred expert meditators gathered together in a city and meditated using transcendental meditation. FBI statistics gathered over the following year recorded substantially lower crime rates. Similar studies have been conducted in several cities around the world. In other experiments presented at the American Political Science Association in 1989, around 7,000 meditators successfully reduced recorded incidents of terrorism and international conflict. So peaceful thoughts vibrate outwards, affecting the consciousness of people nearby, just as a wave produced by dropping a pebble in a small pond will affect everything floating on the surface of the pond. If millions of people were to focus on peace, then people all over the world might be inspired to behave more peacefully towards each other. With a wave of inspiration travelling through the web, people are going about their daily business. They might feel different, more relaxed and peaceful. Others might find their problems solved. Since many of our daily difficulties are products of our chaotic mind, negotiators in conflict situations might suddenly see the solutions to long-running standoffs, and both sides might suddenly feel less hostile towards each other and even less meaning in the fighting than they did previously. All it would take would be for millions of people to focus on peace at the same time on a regular basis. With a peace budget as large as a typical corporate advertising budget, visionary leaders could do a lot of good through the media. Imagine seeing the word peace, love, or happy 100 or so times throughout your daily newspaper, or hearing these words regularly on the TV news. Instead of full-page advertising selling products, imagine there was an advertisement suggesting we be kind to each other today. As more people heard about or read about peace, love, or happiness on a regular basis, the bigger the wave and the bigger the effect. In 2000, some friends and I founded an organisation called Spirit Aid. Our original intention was to organise a special event that would inspire more peace, love and kindness in the world. We hoped that a large mass of people simultaneously focused upon such values might inspire positive changes all over the world. The plan was to hold a concert in a large conference centre, which we soon scaled up to a football stadium and beam it live on TV all over the world. And the key was that in between musical sets, we wanted authors and teachers to speak about peace, love and kindness. We hoped that the combination of music and messages might produce miracles. During the organising phase, the nature of the event evolved into a 9-day, 24-event festival of peace in July 2002 that sent waves of peace, love and kindness around the world. Similarly, in 2003, the authors and teachers James Timon, Greg Braden and Doreen Virtue organised a peace meditation where a few million people around the world prayed peace at exactly the same time, synchronised throughout many different time zones. Shortly after the meditation, there was a veto of the initially proposed UN military action in Iraq. Peace events like this have been organised around the world for several years. Scientists at Princeton University running the Global Consciousness Project have been analysing them since 1998 to see what effects thousands of millions of people are having on regs positioned at several locations around the world. They have proven that peace events do affect the regs, and therefore it is highly likely that they also affect the consciousness of the world. Some events were organised peace meditations, but several Princeton analyses have been on significant events that have made the news around the world, like, for example, the Terrorist Act of 11th of September 2001, or the US presidential election results, or the opening of the Olympic Games. These were times when many millions of people were focused on the same thing at around the same time. So with each event, the scientists collected reg data and found that indeed, as many minds around the world learned of the news at the same time, there were almost always significant changes in the reg data. The coming together of many minds was creating order in the random numbers. To date, 250 events have been analysed and the data combined. Overall, the results were highly positive, with odds against them being just 1,000,000 to 1. Individually and collectively, we affect one another and everything in existence 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Love inspires more love. Peace inspires more peace. Kindness inspires more kindness. Through both our intentions and actions, we change the world. We cannot do anything else. The direction of that change is therefore up to us. ESP. It is not only random event generators that show how things are connected. Multi-million-dollar particle accelerators demonstrate the connectedness of small subatomic particles over large distances. Using these machines, a pair of subatomic particles can be sent at fantastic speeds in opposite directions. One of them is then probed, and it can be shown that the other instantly feels it. Numerous simple ESP, which is extrasensory perception, experiments have shown that things are connected. In a typical ESP experiment, a person has to guess which of a series of cards is being held up. The symbol on the card might be a square, circle, triangle, or wavy lines. Research has shown beyond any shadow of a doubt that guessers are aware of which card is being held up. In 1994, a psychologist named Julie Milton at the University of Edinburgh collected and summarised the results of 78 individual scientific studies involving ESP guesses by 1,158 ordinary people that has been published in scientific journals between 1964 and 1993. Her analysis concluded that the odds against achieving the results by chance were over 10 million to 1. ESP was real. If you think about these experiments, the person guessing and the person holding up the card are connected, and so also are the person guessing and the card being guessed. The people and the cards are made of the same stuff and all are part of the web. Therefore, the identity of the card, its unique type of vibration, is available to the guesser, at least on an unconscious level. All that is required is for the information to be downloaded from the web onto the personal conscious mind of the guesser, just as information is downloaded from the internet onto our personal computers. To someone skilled at downloading, it is just as if the card was being held up in full view. As you might expect, some psychics are adept at it. If we could learn to tap into the collective unconsciousness at will, thereby improving our download connection speed, we would gain some of its knowledge and wisdom. You would therefore expect hypnosis to improve ESP ability because it is known to access the unconscious mind. In 1994, scientists at the University of New York investigated this. They analysed the results of 25 studies that had been published in scientific journals between 1945 and 1982, and indeed discovered that hypnosis improved people's ability to perform well in ESP studies. Interestingly, in many of the reg analysis, it was found that large numbers of people were unconsciously sensing that something was about to happen. For instance, with the Minneapolis bridge collapse on the 1st of August 2007, the regs began to change around an hour prior to the bridge collapse. We should not be so skeptical then when people tell us that they dreamed of such and such disaster before it occurred. I, for instance, had a vivid dream of an odd-shaped plane with triangular wings take a nosedive to the ground a short time before a Concorde collided with a building in Paris. ESP is natural. It is only our belief that is not possible that obstructs our abilities. It is the same with psychic ability. But anyone can practice ESP or become more psychic. Sometimes in the evening, when I was a university student, I tried to train myself. At first, without practice, I could guess the colour of the next card in a randomly shuffled deck of cards, maybe 4 or 5 times at best, which is what you would expect. But through practice, which involved learning to recognise my intuition, I was able to score consistently higher. And once, with much meditation practice, almost self-hypnosis, I guessed the colour of the card 11 times in a row. And with several of the cards, I even guessed the suit. I just had a feeling about each card. I'm no more gifted than anyone else. Anyone can learn to tap into the collective unconscious, just as anyone can learn to connect to the internet. In fact, we tap into it all the time. There is a constant flow of information between the collective unconscious mind and your daily awareness as you feel every vibration, even though most of the time you are not aware of where specific thoughts, intuitions, and impulses come from. In the same way, a leaf floating on the surface of a pond feels the waves created by different pebbles dropped into the pond in various places, but is unaware of the source of each wave. In our daily lives, we are often faced with decisions and frequently make a choice based upon what feels right. It may be that we feel vibrations regarding the probable outcome of each choice, and so we make the choice that we feel is right for us. Many people believe that angels and spirit guides watch over them and help them with daily challenges. Some native cultures share such beliefs, and according to numerous surveys, so does a very large proportion of Western culture. When I give talks, a quick show of hands often reveal that over 90% of the audience share these beliefs. If you assume that angels and spirit guides exist, then they too must be part of the web, since nothing can be separate. But in a universe with consciousness at its most basic building block, it is quite likely that intelligence takes forms other than human. Therefore, it seems quite probable that other intelligent entities could download information to us concerning the best course of action to take. Many people claim to have been so inspired. I myself had an amazing experience in the late 2002. I had created a website for Spirit Aid, but then had moved on to other things. My late friend Pat had taken over responsibility for the site and asked if I could give her a disc with the website on it. I didn't have any CDs to save it onto, so I went to the shops to buy some. When I was there, I noticed several packs of floppy disks and felt a sudden impulse to buy them and save the website onto floppy disks instead of CDs. But I ignored the feeling and bought a pack of CDs because they had larger storage capacity. When I arrived home, I opened up the website files on my computer, put a CD and pressed save. But it didn't work. I tried again and again, but couldn't get the website to save onto the CD. I tried every CD in the pack, but no success, and began to assume they were damaged. I had agreed to hand the website to Pat the next morning, so I was beginning to feel a wee bit concerned that I wouldn't have it ready. Knowing that such a mindset wouldn't help, I got up and decided to leave it until later when I might feel more relaxed. Since it was a nice day, my partner Elizabeth and I went for a drive. We had no idea where we wanted to go, so just kept driving. Each time we passed an exit from the motorway, we wondered where it would take, if we should take it, but always decided to drive on. Turning off the motorway at those times didn't feel right. Eventually, I picked up the map to see if I felt inspired to visit any place in particular. I noticed a small village on the River Forth I'd never heard of and suggested we went there. After driving for almost an hour, we pulled into an empty car park on the outskirts of the village. It was like a ghost town, and I quite expected to see tumbleweed roll past. But as we pulled up to park our car, our attention was drawn to something odd. There was a small box lying on the ground in one of the empty car park spaces. I looked at it and, shocked, realised it was a box of floppy disks. I couldn't believe it. We were in the middle of nowhere, tumbleweed almost rolling by, in an empty car park, in a place we had picked at random, and there was a box of floppy disks. I decided not to touch them in case someone had dropped them and was now on their way back to collect them. Judging by the lack of life anywhere, this was unlikely, but we left them anyway. We walked around the village, had lunch, and returned a couple of hours later, only to discover the disc was still there. In a way, this wasn't surprising, as we'd only seen about half a dozen people all day, including the two that worked in the cafe where we had lunch. And by now, I was getting the message. Those discs were meant for me, so I took them. When we got home after dinner, I decided to have another go at saving the website onto the CD. I made several attempts, and then the penny finally dropped. I was trying to save a file onto a CD when I didn't have a CD writer. I was trying to do it from the normal CD-ROM drive. I had an old computer. Some people won't even understand what I'm talking about. It's changed so much now. We don't even use CDs for storing. For the previous 6 months, among my other responsibility, I've been designated IT person in the charity office and encountered about every conceivable computer problem and software usage you can imagine. Yet I hadn't even realised that I needed a CD writer to save files onto CD. I'd needed floppy disks all along. It was a very large website, and as I was saving the files, the computer kept telling me that each disk had become full. When the website was finally saved, it had taken all 10 floppy disks from the box with absolutely no space left over. at the end, and I just looked up and said, thanks. It used to take hours to save things onto a disk and then put it somewhere else. Hours. But anyway, going back to the book. So coming back to ESP, people receive information from the collective unconsciousness all the time because it is not possible to disconnect from it. It seems that the more relaxed and mentally uncluttered we are, the clearer the information. The technique I used in my personal ESP experiments first helped me to relax, clearing some of the mental noise that often obstructs connection, but it also helped me to overcome some residual beliefs that I held at the time that ESP wasn't possible, and so caused me to have more faith that it was possible. And this, I discovered after several more experiments, was the key to my ability. My belief made it easier for me to access information. Faith, I discovered, made the difference between broadband and dial-up. Don't even dial up anymore, do we? Conversely, a belief that it is not possible to connect seems to obstruct the connection and therefore the flow of information from the unconscious to the conscious. This is why people who are skeptical don't get good results. A lot of people are skeptical as to whether anything out of their mindset is possible, and you've probably heard them say, "I'll believe it when I see it." But people who have accomplished great things in life will testify to it being the other way round. Ability follows belief. As Dr. Wayne Dyer aptly titled one of his books, "You'll see it when you believe it." Sheep and goats. The last little bit for this chapter. In 1993, a psychologist named Tony Lawrence at the University of Edinburgh gathered together the results of 685,000 ESP guesses by 4,500 people performed over a 50-year period from 43 to 93. They were called sheep-goat experiments. A sheep-goat experiment is one that compares the ESP ability of people who believe that ESP is possible with that of people who do not. Lawrence's analysis of the experiment showed that believers, sheep, were much better at ESP than non-believers, goats. And the odds against achieving such results by chance were a staggering 1 trillion to 1. I have conducted a number of ESP experiments with participants at some of my seminars. Typically, I will hold up 20 cards one at a time, and the participants have to guess whether each card is red or black. For a while, the average score per seminar was about 52% correct guesses, where chance would be 50%. I wondered what would happen if the participants had a greater belief in ESP. So in the new seminar, I began asking the participants to spend 5 minutes writing down on paper why they would get a good score and to present a case for ESP. The average score per seminar jumped to 57%. This confirms that people who believe in ESP are better at ESP than people who don't. So the placebo effect extends much further than taking empty pills. People who don't believe in ESP obstruct their own connection, while people who are open to believe that everything is connected give themselves the ability to connect great wisdom and understanding of life through enhancing their connection. One of the byproducts I've noticed is that they also tend to find meaning in their own lives and begin to recognize the contribution that their presence makes to the world. Belief is a powerful thing. Imagine we believed that the world was a good place, populated by billions of kind and compassionate people. If we did that, we might collectively inspire more kindness and compassion in the world through the waves we created. In fact, as more of us begin to see the world in this way, focus upon the goodness, our thoughts resonate with each other and multiply the power of the wave. In the same way, a cynical view, focusing instead upon the smaller number of people who sometimes act differently, might inspire unhappiness. But whatever happens can be viewed as positive or negative. It's how you choose to look at it that determines what you get out of it. We don't all need to try to change the world. All we need to do is change our minds about the world. If we view the world as a beautiful place with beautiful people, and if we are willing to believe in the beauty that we see, then our faith will move mountains. That's the end of chapter 8.